Hello students, good morning. Standard 8, Unit 3, the three questions written by Leo Tolstoy, Supplementary Reader, Section 1. In this story, there was a king. He had three questions in his mind. He wanted to clarify it with some learned person. Let us see the story, the three questions. Okay, students, now take your English book and turn to the page number 83, Supplementary Reader, the three questions. Section 1. There was a king who had three questions in his mind that if he always knew the right time to begin everything, if he knew who were the right people to listen to, and whom to avoid, and above all, if he always knew what was the most important thing to do, he would never fail in anything he might undertake. In this first paragraph, once there was a king, he had three questions in his mind. The first question was, what were the right time for every action? And the second question was, who were the most necessary people? And third question was, how to know what was the most important thing to do? And the next paragraph, and this thought having occurred to him, he had it proclaimed throughout his kingdom that he would give a great reward to anyone who would teach him what was the right time for every action, and who were the most necessary people, and how he might know what was the most important thing to do. So, this thought, the king always thinking about these three questions, and he proclaimed means he announced throughout his kingdom. If anybody was telling answers for these questions, he would give a great reward to them. And the next paragraph, and learned men came to the king, but they all answered his questions differently. In reply to the first question, some said that to know the right time for every action, one must draw up in advance the tables of days, months, and years, and must live strictly according to it. Only thus, said they, could everything be done at its proper time. Others declared that it was impossible to decide beforehand the right time for every action, but that not letting oneself be absorbed in idle pastimes, one should always attend to all that was going on and then do what was most needful. Others again said that, however attentive the king might be to what was going on, it was impossible for one man to decide correctly the right time for every action, but that he should have a council of wise men who would help him to fix the proper time for everything. So many educated persons came to the king and they answered the questions in different manner. The first question reply was, if we planned it every action in advance, like schedule, table of days, months and years, we must plan according to it, we can do our work. Anyway, some persons declared that it was impossible to decide first itself the right time for every action, and if we observe the pastimes, we realized something what we have to do in future, then according to the past action we plan and we can do. And some people said that it was impossible for one man to decide correctly the right time for every action, but that he could have a council of wise men. So the king was keeping a council of wise men and doing his action in the sense it is easy to select the action to do. See the next paragraph. But then again, others said there were some things which could not wait to be laid before a council, but about which one had at once to decide whether to undertake them or not. But in order to decide that, one must know beforehand what was going to happen. It is only magicians who know that, and therefore, in order to know the right time for every action, one must consult magicians. So, Again, some other persons came and they discussed about the first questions, and they have said one had at once to decide whether to undertake them or not. But in order to decide that, they must know about the past and also future. Future is only knowing by the magicians. So, to know the right time for every action, we must consult with magicians. Next paragraph C, equally various were the answers to the second question. Some said the people, the king most needed were his counselors, others the priest, others the doctors, while some said the warriors were the most necessary. Here, the king asked the second question, who were the most necessary people? So for that also he got the various answers. Somebody said that the most needed were his counselors. Counselors means giving advice to him. Others said that the priest, the religion priest, and others said that doctors, and somebody said that the warriors, soldiers. And see the next paragraph. To the third question as to what was the most important occupation, some replied that the most important thing in the world was science. Others said it was skill in warfare, and others again that it was religious worship. All the answers being different, the king agreed with none of them and gave the reward to none. But still wishing to find the right answers to his question, he decided to consult a hermit widely renowned for his wisdom. See, the third question of the king was how to know what was the most important thing to do, that is occupation. So for that, answers given by the learned persons were different. The king agreed with none of them. Somebody said that the most important occupation was science, and others said that the skill in warfare, and others said that religious worship was the best occupation. But the king did not accept these answers and he wanted to know the correct answers for these questions. The king decided to meet the hermit who lived in a wood. Wood means here forest. The king wore simple clothes and reached the hermit's cell. And he left the bodyguard as well as horse. The next paragraph, when the king approached, the hermit was digging the ground in front of his head. Seeing the king, he greeted him and went on digging. The hermit was frail and weak, and each time he struck his spade into the ground and turned a little earth, he breathed heavily. The king approached the hermit who was digging the ground in front of his hut. By seeing the king, he greeted, but he continued to do the work. The hermit was very tired as well as weak, and each time he struck his spade into the ground and turned a little earth, he breathed heavily. The next page you see, the king went up to him and said, I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer 3 questions. How can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? Who are the people I most need? And to whom should I therefore pay more attention than to the rest? And what are the most important and need my first attention? So the king approached the hermit and asked his doubt. The 3 questions: what were the right time for every action? Who were the most necessary people? And how to know what was the most important thing to do? Next paragraph, the hermit listened to the king but answered nothing. He just spat on his hand and recommenced digging. You are tired, said the king. Let me take the spade and work a while for you. Thanks, said the hermit, and giving the spade to the king, he sat down on the ground. When he had dug 2 beds, the king stopped and repeated his questions. The hermit again gave no answer but rose, stretched out his hand for the spade, and said, Now rest a while and let me work a bit. The hermit listened the king's questions very keenly, but he did not say any answer. He continued his digging. Then the king asked, "You are tired?" and asked him to give the spade and work a while for him. The hermit thanked him and gave the spade to him, and he sat down on the ground. When the king had dug two beds, the king stopped and repeated his question. The hermit again gave no answer, but he asked the spade, and now he asked to take rest a while. See the next step. But the king did not give him the spade and continued to dig. 1 hour passed and another. The sun began to sink behind the trees, and the king at last struck the spade into the ground and said, "I came to you, wise man, for an answer to my questions. If you can give me none, tell me so, and I will return home." "Here comes someone running," said the hermit. "Let us see who it is." So the king did not give the spade to him. He continued his digging. For 1 hour passed, 2 hours passed, and time passed. The sun also began to set. But the king continuously did his work. At last, he struck the spade into the ground and said to the wise man, "You did not answer my question." The king asked the hermit if he did not want to tell the answer for his question. He left him and allowed him to go home. But the hermit interrupted. Someone was running outside to go and watched. Who was that? Students, I hope you all have enjoyed this story. The end of the story. Tomorrow we will see. Thank you.